Ladies and gentlemen, when you stand at the intersection of power and emotion, something fascinating happens. The heart and the mind begin to negotiate. That negotiation, that fragile balance between logic and love, is the very essence of being human. And tonight, as we explore the question, was this wedding a power move or true love? We're not merely examining a man's private life. We're examining what happens when genius, ambition, and emotion collide. You see, when someone spends their life redefining industries, rockets, cars, energy, AI, every decision becomes symbolic. Every gesture, every relationship, every vow taken under the gaze of billions carries weight. For most people, a wedding is a personal moment. For someone at the center of the global spotlight, it becomes a reflection of ideology, purpose, and sometimes control. So what really drives a mind like that to fall in love? Is it instinct, chemistry, and vulnerability? Or is it another calculated mission in the pursuit of a grander vision? That's the paradox we'll unfold tonight. I want you to imagine for a moment what it means to live under constant innovation pressure, where every morning, the first thought isn't, what will I eat today? But how do I push civilization forward another inch? When the human brain is wired this way, obsessively forward-driven, love itself begins to transform. It no longer looks like comfort, it looks like alliance. It's no longer about finding someone who completes you. It's about finding someone who can endure your velocity. And in the case we're exploring tonight, that's the essence of what people miss when they see the headlines. They see the surface, the ceremony, the glamour, the social buzz. But what's underneath it is a deeper human experiment. Can someone with that much responsibility, that much pressure, that much inner fire, truly give themselves to love without strategic purpose? Let's step back for a moment. Neuroscience tells us that the brain in love activates the same dopamine and serotonin circuits triggered by innovation and discovery. The same reward systems that light up when a scientist finds the missing variable, or when an engineer finally achieves ignition, are activated when we fall deeply in love. For someone whose entire identity is built around problem solving, love becomes not just emotion, it becomes an equation. But here's the twist: the more intelligent the mind, the harder it becomes to surrender, because surrender, the essence of love, requires vulnerability, and vulnerability feels like inefficiency to a brain optimized for survival and conquest. Yet, paradoxically, it is that surrender that allows the human soul to evolve. So, was it a power move? Perhaps. But maybe it was also the ultimate act of courage. To allow emotion to enter a life built on control. There's a theory in behavioral psychology known as the alignment paradox. It states that when two powerful systems, or two powerful people, align, their union can either amplify greatness or trigger collapse. The success of that alignment depends on intention. If the union is built to impress, it burns fast. If it's built to sustain, it transforms both partners. In the case of a man who commands rockets and robots, the idea of a wedding isn't just romance, it's also about the alignment of energy. Think of it like merging two orbital paths. If they sync perfectly, they can orbit together, stable, harmonious, even infinite. But if one orbit drifts, even slightly, the entire system destabilizes. That's the scientific mirror of human love. Now, when we look deeper, we notice patterns. Historically, powerful men have often used marriage as an extension of their public narrative. Kings, emperors, visionaries, their unions were strategic alliances. But in this case, we're dealing with a man who has spent his entire life defying traditional power structures. His drive is not to maintain order, but to disrupt it. So why would he conform in love when he refuses to conform in anything else? Perhaps the answer lies in neuroscience again, the human prefrontal cortex. The seat of long-term decision-making is incredibly sensitive to emotional influence. Even the most rational minds are susceptible to what psychologists call emotional bias reinforcement. Meaning, no matter how logical you think you are, once you feel emotionally seen, the logic bends. The strategy dissolves. The mind begins to serve the heart, not the other way around. I think that's what we're witnessing here. Not just a man making a calculated statement of power, but a man confronting the last frontier of human intelligence, emotional intelligence. Because let's face it, we've mastered rockets, algorithms, neural links. But have we mastered connection? When someone who lives in the realm of reason steps into the realm of emotion, it's not a retreat, it's an evolution. Love becomes the ultimate test of integration. Can intellect coexist with empathy? Can ambition coexist with intimacy? Can a person who builds Mars still hold someone's hand on Earth without calculating the trajectory? I believe this wedding is not the story of dominance or optics. It's the story of an emotional singularity, a moment when the machine of intellect meets the pulse of humanity. And yet, we can't ignore the public aspect. Power always creates perception. For many observers, this wedding looked like a statement, a new chapter in an already mythic narrative. The question wasn't just who he married, but why now? Why at this stage when his empire spans space, AI, transport, and communication? Was it timing or was it strategy? We often underestimate how much personal milestones in powerful lives synchronize with business or cultural inflection points. Every announcement, every event becomes a form of messaging. And maybe, just maybe, this wedding was a message not to the media, but to himself, a reminder that humanity, emotion, and vulnerability still matter, even in a life so dominated by machines. I once heard a neuroscientist say, "Genius is the ability to hold opposing truths at the same time without breaking." That's what I think this symbolizes, because love and power are opposing truths. Power wants control, love demands surrender. Power builds systems, love dissolves them. Power seeks certainty, love thrives in mystery. To live both at once, that's not a stunt. That's transcendence. As the ceremony unfolded, beyond the cameras and speculation, I imagine there were moments of silence, microseconds of truth that no one could capture, a glance, a breath, a shared knowing that in that instant, despite all the chaos of the world, two human beings met in simplicity. That's not strategy, that's connection. And in the end, perhaps it's both. A power move and true love. Because for those who live at the edge of creation, love itself becomes the most radical form of power. Because when you strip away the spectacle, the headlines, the wealth, the symbolism, what remains is something profoundly universal. Every human, no matter how brilliant or ambitious, still seeks the same core sensations: to be understood, to be accepted, to be seen not as an icon, but as a soul. The deeper I've studied the neurology of connection, the more I've realized this truth. Love isn't just an emotion, it's a neurobiological synchrony. When two people truly connect, their brainwaves literally begin to align. Heart rhythms synchronize, breathing patterns harmonize. It's measurable, it's real. This is not poetry, it's physics. The body becomes an instrument of resonance. That's why true love feels effortless. It's coherence in motion. But what happens when one of those people lives in constant chaos? When their mind is consumed by solving the biggest problems humanity has ever faced? Colonizing planets, reinventing technology, reprogramming civilization itself. Can that person ever truly quiet down enough to experience resonance? It's hard. But that's why this union, this wedding, becomes so fascinating. Because for a man who thrives in systems of disruption, love may be the only force capable of re-centering him. There's a beautiful paradox here. The more someone controls the external world, the more they crave surrender in the internal one. When your entire existence is defined by leadership, the one place you secretly long not to lead is in love. Many people misunderstand this kind of relationship. They think, he's too powerful to love authentically, or it must be strategic. But emotion doesn't discriminate by IQ. It humbles everyone the same way. It sneaks in between logic and vulnerability, and before you know it, the most disciplined mind begins to soften. That's the real power of love. It equalizes. It disarms. It reminds even the most extraordinary human being that we are, at our core, fragile creatures searching for warmth. You see, when power becomes lonely, it starts to lose its humanity. And when love enters that vacuum, it doesn't just change a person. It changes their vision. We often talk about love as a distraction, but scientifically, love can be an enhancer. Dopamine spikes from romantic attachment actually improve focus, creativity, and problem solving. Love at the neurological level isn't weakness, it's fuel. That's why when I look at this moment in his life, I don't see manipulation. I see a recalibration, a shift from external conquest to internal balance. You can only build empires for so long before your soul begins to whisper, "And what about you?" True love forces that reckoning. It demands authenticity. It doesn't care about rockets, fame, or net worth. It asks the one question no algorithm can answer. Who are you when no one is watching? And perhaps that's why this moment felt so different. It wasn't about expanding power. It was about expanding humanity. About acknowledging that, even within the life of someone seen as otherworldly, the deepest need remains profoundly human. Connection. There's another dimension to consider: the collective projection of society. We tend to mythologize public figures, turning their lives into symbols of our own hopes and contradictions. When someone of immense influence marries, we don't just see two people. We see reflections of our own definitions of love, success, and worth. We ask ourselves, if someone like that can find love, maybe there's hope for me too. Or conversely, if even they struggle with it, what chance do I have? In this way, public love stories become mirrors, not windows. And that's the beauty of it. They force us to examine our own patterns, our own definitions of power and vulnerability. For decades, society told us that success and intimacy were incompatible, that to lead, you must detach, that to achieve greatness, you must sacrifice tenderness. But neuroscience and human evolution suggest the opposite. The most creative, visionary, and resilient minds are often those who've experienced deep, secure love, because love at its best doesn't limit ambition, it stabilizes it. Think of it this way: a rocket without a guidance system is just chaos in motion. Power without grounding burns too quickly. Love becomes that gravitational force, the stabilizer that allows greatness to sustain itself over time. So when we ask, was it a power move or true love? Maybe we're asking the wrong question. Maybe power and love aren't opposites at all. Maybe, in the evolution of a human being, love is the highest form of power. Power controls, love connects. Power conquers. Love harmonizes. Power creates fear. Love dissolves it. And when those two forces merge, humanity takes a leap forward. It's not about a wedding. It's about integration. The unification of two inner worlds, one of intellect and one of emotion, finally orbiting in sync. Some may still argue that every move of a public figure carries intent, that no event, especially at that scale, is free from strategy. And maybe they're right. Maybe there was strategy. But since when does intention cancel emotion? Can't both exist? Can't someone make a choice that's both personally fulfilling and symbolically powerful? Because love, too, is a kind of power move, just not the kind that dominates others. It's the kind that conquers fear, ego, and isolation. It's the move that says, I am willing to be seen, not as a myth, but as a man. There's something incredibly profound about that. The greatest act of leadership is not commanding others, it's daring to live authentically in front of them, to remind billions watching that even those who reshape worlds still yearn to be loved in return. This wedding, then, might be one of the most radical statements of all, that even in an age of algorithms and Mars missions, love still matters, that human connection still outranks control, that vulnerability, not velocity, defines meaning. And perhaps that's the message to all of us, that no matter how powerful, how busy, how logical we become, life's ultimate measure isn't how high we climb. It's how deeply we connect. So maybe it was both a power move wrapped in love, or love expressed as power. Maybe at that moment, two people simply chose to stand still, not on a launch pad, not on a stage, but in each other's presence, and say, this is where my universe begins. And perhaps the most astonishing part of it all, ladies and gentlemen, is that in the end, when the cameras fade and the applause dies down, what remains is not the spectacle, not the wealth, not even the legacy of achievement. What remains is that small, trembling spark of humanity that asks, did I love deeply enough? Did I allow myself to be known, not for what I built, but for who I truly am? Because when you think about it, every invention, every empire, every innovation is simply an attempt to bridge distance. Between people, between worlds, between hearts. SpaceX exists because of a yearning to connect worlds millions of miles apart. Tesla exists to reconnect humanity to its planet. Neuralink exists to reconnect the human brain to its own potential. And so, it makes sense that eventually, the one who creates those bridges would search for the most intimate bridge of all: love. We often think that geniuses are immune to emotional need, that their purpose is too grand for intimacy. But the truth is the opposite. The higher a person ascends into abstraction, science, technology, creation, the stronger their hunger becomes for something real. Something tactile, grounding, unquantifiable. Love becomes that gravity. It's ironic, isn't it? The man who defies gravity in his work finds his greatest meaning in the one thing that keeps him anchored to earth. That's the ultimate symmetry, to soar toward the stars while still needing the warmth of human touch. And if you look closely, you realize this: the wedding wasn't just a private moment. It was a philosophical statement. It was a declaration that progress without tenderness is incomplete. That to advance civilization, we must not only build machines that think, we must nurture hearts that feel, because there's no sustainable future without emotional evolution. You can't build Mars if you can't build a home here first. For years, he's been known for his intellect, his audacity, his relentless drive. But this moment, this choice, this leap into love, it reveals something even greater: a willingness to be human again, to step beyond logic, beyond data, beyond control, and to embrace chaos, the beautiful chaos of connection. And that's what makes it powerful. True love, in its purest form, is rebellion. It defies cynicism, it disarms intellect, it whispers to the most guarded heart, you can be safe here. You see, love isn't fragile. It's the most advanced technology the human race has ever developed. It rewires the brain more profoundly than any neural interface. It enhances resilience, increases creativity, and extends longevity. Studies show that people in stable, loving relationships recover faster from illness, live longer, and maintain better memory and cognitive function. So when a man obsessed with human advancement chooses love, that's not sentimentality, that's foresight. It's an investment in emotional evolution. Maybe this isn't just about romance at all. Maybe it's about demonstrating that humanity's future must be engineered not only with metal and code, but with empathy. Because when love and intelligence unite, something extraordinary happens. Innovation gains soul. And isn't that what we're truly striving for? Not just smarter machines, but wiser humans. Not just faster rockets, but gentler hearts. Not just progress, but purpose. That's what this moment represented. A collision of two cosmic forces. The hunger to change the world, and the desire to feel at home within it. When we ask, was it a power move or true love? Maybe the real answer is that it was a transformation. The moment when power evolved into love, and love redefined power. Because what is power if not the ability to create change? And what greater change can there be than choosing vulnerability over ego, connection over control? In a world obsessed with dominance, love becomes the ultimate revolution. Ladies and gentlemen, when history looks back on this chapter, they won't just see a wedding. They'll see a shift. A human being stepping out from behind the walls of brilliance to show the world that even the mind that dreams of Mars still beats with a very earthly heart. That's the balance we're all searching for. Between mission and meaning, between legacy and love. So maybe the answer isn't to choose between power or love, but to understand that the two were never separate to begin with. Love is not the opposite of strength. It is the highest expression of it. Because power builds worlds, but love makes them worth living in. And if there's one message to take from all of this, it's that no matter who we are, billionaire or barista, visionary or dreamer, We are all united by the same invisible law of the universe that love, when real, becomes our most intelligent choice. So, as we leave here tonight, I invite you to rethink your own definitions of success. Maybe it isn't measured by how much we own, how far we travel, or how many people know our names, but by how deeply we dare to love. Because someday, long after the rockets fade and the machines fall silent, what will remain is not our empires, but our echoes, the way we made others feel, the love we gave, the lives we touched. And in that sense, perhaps the greatest mission any of us can embark on is not to conquer the universe, but to understand the one beating quietly within us. Thank you